My husband left to comfort his ex-girlfriend, so I kicked him out. Now I'm wondering if our marriage can survive this. I, 32F, have been married to my husband, 38M, for 3 years. Our relationship has had its ups and downs, but overall, we've been a happy couple. However, early in our relationship, I discovered that he had been dating another woman, Angela, 24F, at the same time as me. When I confronted him, he claimed he didn't know we were exclusive since we hadn't officially defined our relationship. I told him that if he didn't end things with Angela, I would walk away. After some time apart, he showed up at my apartment weeks later and told me it was over with Angela. He wanted to start fresh with me and asked me to be his girlfriend. From that point on, we've had what I thought was a solid relationship. I truly believed he was my soulmate until Angela came back into our lives. 3 weeks ago, while running errands together, we stopped at a new boba shop next to our grocery store. As we browsed the menu, I noticed a woman who looked eerily familiar walk in. My heart sank as I realized it was Angela. Before I could process my panic, she called out to my husband. They exchanged a brief but awkward conversation while I stood there disassociating, hoping it would end quickly. When she asked if I was his wife, he nodded and held my hand, a small but cold comfort in the moment. I hurried us out of the shop as soon as we got our drinks. That encounter alone left me shaken, but things escalated 2 weeks later when I saw a Facebook Messenger notification pop up on my husband's phone. Curious, I asked who it was from. He casually said it was an old friend and brushed it off. A few days later, while using his phone to order food, another notification came through from Angela. I confronted him immediately. He admitted she had friended him after their encounter and started messaging him. He claimed their conversations were casual and friendly, but promised to stop talking to her when I expressed how uncomfortable it made me. Reluctantly, he unfriended her after some hesitation. For a moment, I thought the issue was resolved until last night. Last night, Angela messaged him again, this time spamming him with texts and even calling him in tears. She told him her mother was sick and that she had no one else to turn to for comfort. My husband decided to go see her without even consulting me first. I only found out because I caught him putting on his shoes near the door. When I asked where he was going, he explained Angela's situation and insisted she needed someone to be there for her. I told him not to go, that this crossed a line, but he brushed past me and left anyway. In that moment of anger and betrayal, I told him that if he went to comfort his ex-girlfriend, he wouldn't be welcome back home. He scoffed at me as he walked out the door. 3 hours later, he returned home like nothing had happened. Still furious, I told him he couldn't stay here after what he'd done. He argued that he had nowhere else to go, so I suggested he stay with Angela since they seemed so close now. He left again without another word. I spent the rest of the night trying not to cry while pouring myself a few drinks. The next day, still emotionally drained and unsure how to move forward, I called in sick to work and stayed home all day in a haze of confusion and hurt. He didn't come back that day or even contact me, and his phone location was turned off. Part of me worried about where he was or if something had happened to him, but another part of me felt too betrayed to reach out first. Update. 8 days later, after no communication except for brief texts, my husband finally came home. We sat down for dinner in silence before he asked if we could talk about what happened. He handed me his phone so I could read through their messages myself. Angela had sent him numerous texts over several days, some casual updates about her life, but others far more alarming, including suicidal threats. My husband said he responded out of concern for her well-being. The night she called him crying about her mother's illness was apparently another manipulation tactic. When he arrived at her house, she initially claimed she'd taken pills in an attempt to harm herself, but later admitted she hadn't actually done so. She confessed that she lied about her mother being sick just so he would come see her because she felt lonely and wanted someone by her side. He said he tried convincing her to go to the hospital or seek professional help but ultimately left when it became clear she wasn't being truthful about anything. After hearing his explanation and reading through the messages, I still felt deeply betrayed. While it's clear Angela manipulated him into coming over that night, it doesn't excuse the fact that he prioritized her over me or disregarded my feelings entirely. I decided to take some time away from him to process everything and stayed with my parents for a week while figuring out what to do next. During this time apart, communication between us remained minimal, mostly logistical texts about household matters, but emotionally, we were worlds apart. As if things couldn't get worse, I received a message request on Instagram from a burner account containing a screenshot of Angela's private story, a picture of her in lingerie with a caption, "She'll just have to taste me when she's kissing him." I'm heading back home tomorrow after spending a week with my family trying to clear my head, but honestly, I still don't know what to do or how we can move forward from this. While my husband insists nothing physical happened between them and claims his intentions were purely out of concern for her mental health, trust has been shattered on both sides. I don't feel ready to make any major decisions yet. Divorce feels extreme for something like this, but how do we go back to normal after everything that's happened? How do you rebuild trust when it feels like your partner chose someone else over you? Final update. When I returned home the next day, I was still unsure about what the future held for us. But as we sat down to talk, something shifted. My husband acknowledged that he had made a grave mistake by prioritizing Angela's needs over mine. He admitted that he had let his guilt and sympathy cloud his judgment, but he also recognized that this wasn't an excuse for betraying my trust. He proposed that we seek couples therapy to work through these issues and rebuild our relationship. He promised to be more transparent and honest moving forward, and to set clear boundaries with Angela to prevent any future incidents. I agreed to give therapy a try, not because I was ready to forgive him immediately, but because I wanted to understand why he made those choices and how we could prevent similar situations in the future. Over the next few weeks, we attended therapy sessions together. It wasn't easy, but slowly, we began to heal and rebuild our relationship. My husband worked hard to regain my trust, and I learned to communicate my feelings more effectively. It took time, but eventually, we found our way back to each other. We realized that our love was strong enough to overcome this challenge, but it required effort and commitment from both of us. In the end, Angela's manipulations brought us to a breaking point, but they also forced us to confront our issues and strengthen our bond. We emerged from this ordeal with a deeper understanding of each other and a renewed commitment to our marriage. I learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about understanding why it happened and working together to ensure it doesn't happen again. My husband and I are still healing, but we're doing it together, and that's what matters most.